Hey, my name's Jared Moon, and I'm part of a group of underground athletes you've probably never even heard of before. Most of us don't even have gym memberships. We don't have every piece of equipment known to man, nor do we have a ton of time to train. And we don't need it because we're achieving amazing things without it. We are garage gym athletes, and these are our stories. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Jared Moon here with Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
Happy almost summer.
Yeah, it's pretty much summer for me because I go off of my kids being out of school, which happened last week. So it is officially summer for me.
Oh, I was thinking of the weather. Some people got a heat wave in the south, I think I saw.
Yeah, it's actually, Texas hasn't gotten there yet. I was messaging with Trampus on Instagram. He was asking me how it was in Texas. It's actually worse in South Carolina than it is here right now, which won't be the case in like 2 weeks probably.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's South got a heat wave for sure. We're so mild, like upper 80s with really high humidity. It's just like child's play.
That's mild.
for what's coming.
Oh man.
All right, man. So we're reverting the sponsor back to blueberries. I actually just think that they're a little bit healthier. And so, and everyone in the crew seems to be enjoying them a little bit more. I didn't get a lot of response from the broccoli. I think everyone kind of hates broccoli. Even if you like the taste, you kind of hate it. Just from the look of it and stuff.
I just got some today.
So you're a broccoli lover then?
Somewhat, yeah. I mean, I eat a lot of weird stuff, so.
I know, but do you like the taste?
I mean, I can make anything taste good.
But just raw broccoli? Broccoli
no.
Or raw blueberries? Which one would you prefer?
Well, obviously blueberries.
There you go.
That's how you're supposed to eat blueberries, really.
You don't cook them?
You don't cook blueberries and then eat them. You have to cook broccoli.
You know, something that was really good when I was doing my little keto experiment. I had this book, had desserts, like keto desserts you could have, and it was just blueberries with heavy cream, like a tablespoon or two of heavy cream, and you mix it up real fast because the blueberries are frozen, and then it turns into like this kind of ice cream type situation. Pretty good, other than the fact my body absolutely hates dairy, and so I can't do that anymore. Cream. Yeah. Oh, dude, that's a good idea. I didn't even think about it. I might try that. Anyway, that was really good, but I had to stop because keto sucks, and so does dairy for me. All right. Let's. We're doing something really cool. Other than blueberries, we're doing a giveaway for podcast listeners only. Shh! Don't tell anybody. Actually, you could tell anybody and everybody, but there's only one way to win, and it's going to be for podcast listeners. I'm not emailing this out to anybody. I'm not posting it in any Facebook groups or anything inside the Garage Gym Athlete community other than those who are listening to the podcast. What we're going to be doing is a barbell giveaway from Rogue Fitness. A legit one. We normally do the Rogue Barbell 2.0. I think that's the one we normally get, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so what we're going to do, it's pretty simple. This is not a bribe. This is encouragement. So if you love this podcast, you just love it, you think it's awesome, and you're in the Apple world, leave us a 5-star review and a positive comment. You need to do both of those things. And if you're like, you know what, I'm kind of on the fence about this podcast, don't really like you guys, it sucks, that's fine. You are not participating in this giveaway. This is really only for people who enjoy what we're doing and the information we're putting out. So I'm just encouraging you, if you're like, no, I actually do love this podcast, I just haven't taken the 60 seconds it will take to hit the 5-star button and also leave a positive comment, which I think you can do on your phone now. That used to not be a thing. You used to have to go log into iTunes on your computer. So you can do it on your phone. Just pull up this podcast, 5-star review, positive comment, and boom, there you go. You are entered in to the barbell giveaway. Now, a lot of you have crazy usernames. There's no way I can actually track you down from just a review popping up on iTunes. And so you have to also be listening to the podcast when we announce the winner, which will be in about 1 month from when this podcast is published. So 4 weeks, we will announce the winner. I'll announce it here on the podcast. And if you have some sort of crazy username, I'm going to say, hey, Bambi437 is the winner. You have to then email support@Into3Fitness where we can send you the barbell. And I guess anyone could like falsely claim that.
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah. Well, we've done this before on the Better Humanology podcast, and it works. So we will just get it all situated, and I think it will work out. And if normally it matches up somewhat, and if you're, like I said, if you're not listening to the podcast when we announce, then you can't win because we don't have any way to email you or reach out to you or anything like that. And if you want to try and steal the barbell from the person who actually won it, that's awful. Don't do it. We will track you down. And then everyone who's like listening to this on Android, we don't hate you. We don't hate the Android listeners, but there are too many different ways to listen to a podcast on an Android device. I can't even keep track of them anymore. But most of them do have a review system, like Stitcher. Stitcher's the only Google Play. Yeah, we will be checking those as well. We will go check them before we officially pull the winner. So if you're listening on Android some other way, if it's Stitcher or Google Play or whatever, and there's the ability to leave a review, do that. And we will check those as well when we pull the winner. I think that's it. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
I don't think so either, man. Yeah, so barbell coming at you. If you like the podcast, and we're just encouraging to leave the review that you wanted to leave anyway, and the 5-star review that you wanted to leave anyway, just encouraging to get that done, and we'll shoot you a barbell. Well, one of you. But hey, guys, I really encourage you to get in on this, because of all the giveaways, if we were to like talk about your chances, this one, having done a lot of giveaways at Into3Fitness over the years, this one by far your best chance. Because if I had to guess, like maybe we'll get 50 to 100 reviews, like maybe. And on top, like when we do an email campaign on like all the different ways that you can enter that bar, but we have thousands of people enter those. Thousands and thousands of people register for those. So like statistically, your chances of winning this one much higher than a typical giveaway at Into3Fitness. So boom. That's it.
Yeah. Get creative and we might read it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's like how we're going to pick, right? Yeah, we're going to pick at random, but obviously your comments have a lot to do with the selection, right?
You can't just write, it's good. Pass.
All right. Other than that, if you do, we had a few people email us. I'm keeping track. We'll reach out soon. If you want to be on the podcast the next season, go ahead, shoot us an email. support@Into3Fitness.com. Best way to get a hold of us. And you can be on this podcast when we interview athletes. Now, going into this past week, man, how was your training? How did this past week go for you?
Pretty great, actually. I think I can't even remember what day I did what, but I kept up with the recovery, the spring leaning recovery day easy run.
Nice.
Did another 3 mile, though sometimes it's hard for me to just like keep it easy. Like I'll go easy for a while and then I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in a groove. I'll go a little bit faster. But this time I tried to monitor my heart rate and keep it at about 75% or below, which wasn't too hard, except toward the end. I just kind of ignored it.
That really is a challenge with trying to do like what we're talking about, like active recovery.
Mm-hmm.
You almost have to walk sometimes, because the same thing happens to me. If I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to do a 3 mile recovery jog. Nope. I'll always end up running faster. Like I'm like, damn it. And then now you're doing a workout. It's not recovery anymore. So it is, you have to do those correctly, but that's good.
Yeah. So focusing on that. And since it's getting hotter, I am focusing more on hydration because I'm sweating a lot more. Even when I'm going to PT, I did PT today and I was sweating like a dog. But dogs don't sweat. Anyway.
They pant.
Yeah. That's their way of sweating.
Yeah.
Anyway.
You were panting like a dog.
Yes, I was panty. Actually, yes. On Saturday, we wanted to do, because we did MURPH on Mondays. A lot of people did MURPH on Saturday, but we did it on Monday with the masses almost, but at home. And Saturday, we decided to do kind of a shortened version of the E3 5K, and that went and felt great, even though we had to run uphill a bunch of times, but it's okay.
So you're just crushing it, man. You're on top of that recovery game. PT's going well.
Yep. Though over the weekend, my recovery was really low, and I don't understand why. Oh my God, I've been sleeping a lot less only because for some reason, I don't know if I didn't notice it last year, but the sun is up here at like 5:30 in the morning. So like once 6 o'clock comes around, I'm like, all right, well, I guess I'm not sleeping anymore.
Yeah, like in Texas, man, the sun's just like, and during the summertime, the sun's just up, like up at probably 5:45, and then I really feel like there's still sunlight at like 9:30 at night, but when I'm like trying to go to sleep.
Yeah, but we hit up MURPH on Monday, and that went better than I thought it was going to go. I mean, I knew it was going to go decent, but over the last week, my shoulder's been kind of giving me some issues, some pinching pains or whatever, so I had to get a nice good warm up in for that. But the main thing that I'll take away for my wife and I both did it was are some of the improvements were the recovery that we noticed after. Last year, when I did it for the first time with a vest, my legs were wrecked after. I was sore for 2 days after. It just killed me. But after this one, we both finished and we were like, I'm good. Like we felt great. We get to go out and do whatever. Wasn't very sore yesterday or the day after. What's the day? Yeah, whatever, the day after. So that was good. And she even improved her time by like a minute, and she even did like one version scaled up from what she did last time and improved. So all of that just shows that, and we haven't even been doing the MURPH project every weekend or even every month. So it's not like we've been used to get the MURPH. We just kept consistency over training over the year and good to go.
That's awesome. Yeah. You've been doing the once per year MURPH project.
It's kind of like once per cycle.
Once per cycle. I think that's what Ashley's doing. She mentioned. Yeah.
Ours is like unintentional, but yeah, I think we're going to start to at least keep up with that.
Well, I hit up MURPH on Saturday, and my buddy Ben came over for the workout. Dude, it was pretty standard, pretty good workout. Not a great time, but not a bad time either. I can't remember exact, maybe like right around 30 minutes, somewhere between 30 and 31. And that, I've been mentioning it for several weeks on the podcast. Here is when it happens. It's going to start getting worse and worse, my time. And this past weekend was my first real taste of that because we waited until like the middle of the day to do it just because of scheduling. That's the only time we could both meet up. And so I don't remember the exact temperature, but it was like 89 degrees with 90% humidity. So the feels like temperature was, well into the 90s, but that's the hottest Saturday I've done it so far, coming off from having been acclimated to North Carolina. Like I missed a summer basically. Cause like,
yeah,
up in the mountains in North Carolina last year, summer's so mild, specifically where we were at. It was super mild. We moved from Texas to North Carolina like in the fall, and then basically missed a summer. And then we moved back to Texas when things had already started cooling off. And so this is my first real summer in like 2 years of like actual heat. And so, yeah, this was my first little taste of it. And I could just tell, man, I was sweating so much more than normal. I was a little bit more sore the next day, which is weird. Just the temperature, that's a big factor. And my heart rate was getting higher at the same given intensity. So, not like I was trying any harder. That heat it affects your body so much more than you realize. So, yeah, I'm really on top of electrolytes with my Space Jam drink and just staying on top of fluids throughout the day. But it was good. It was good, but it's going to be interesting when the heat comes around. And then the only other update I have, man, I took advantage of a Memorial Day sale, which was, I finally bought, dude, it's been on my list for like 5 years probably. I bought a chili pad. Are you aware of what a chili pad is?
Nope.
Okay, I only bought it for my side of the bed. You can buy it for the whole bed or just half the bed. I bought it for my side because Emily wasn't interested, she said. And it was like $200 off or something like that. I had to do it. So I took advantage of it. The chili pad is really cool. Now, I can't actually vouch for this. So if you're thinking about going to get a chili pad, I don't actually know if they're good or if they suck. I will let you guys know after mine arrives. It's not here yet. But it can cool the bed down. It's like a mat that goes under your sheets. It can cool the bed down to 55 degrees or heat it up to 110 degrees. So it can heat or cool. In the summer, even though we have pretty good air conditioner here, the rest of my family doesn't enjoy being as cold as I am. And so, in cooling your entire house down just because you're the only hot one in your house doesn't really work, especially when you have a baby. And so I got one of these things. I'm going to probably leave it at 55 degrees and just sleep in ice, all the time. But I am really looking forward to it. It's supposed to give you deeper sleeps if you struggle with being hot at night or whatever. It seems like a really great fit, but I will keep everyone updated. I'm really excited about getting hold of that.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
I have
right?
a stand-up fan that is about 3 feet away from me. That's always on when I'm sleeping. And that sounds amazing.
Yeah, man. You got to get like it. The price stopped me for a long time because I'm like kind of skeptical about whether or not it's actually going to work. But I had some friends, not just reading the like reviews online. I actually had some friends who were like, no, that's like the best thing in the world. And I was like, done, it's over, getting it. So, and I'll give everybody an update on the podcast after it rolls in. I think they're a little back-ordered because of that Memorial Day thing, but probably a couple weeks. I'll update everybody on that. But let's jump into some of this content, man. So what we're going to be covering today, the actual study is attentional focusing instructions influence quadriceps activity characteristics, but not force production during isokinetic knee extensions. The most
rolls right off the tongue.
Yeah. So what we're actually looking at, if I had to like rename that for you guys, is does the mind muscle connection after muscle affect muscle activation or performance? So the mind muscle connection, does it affect muscle activation or performance? And the term muscle activation or the mind muscle connection is really big in the bodybuilding world. It's essentially the idea when performing a lift, you really focus on the muscle you're trying to target with an exercise so you can activate it more. And the theory is leading to more muscle growth. That is the mind muscle connection. So if you were to be doing a bicep curl, just really concentrate on your bicep moving and, activating that muscle as you're doing the repetitions. That's what this mind muscle connection is. But there's a lot of differences. So what this study kind of looking at is like what is better when you're doing this? Would it be internal cues or external cues? So I feel like I have to give a lot of backstory before we can hop into some of this stuff. So first off, what is an internal cue? So an internal cue are cues that direct attention towards some aspect of a movement or some part of the body. For example, when cueing the lockout of a bench press, you may say squeeze the triceps or extend your elbows. So these internal cues are more what they were looking at, muscle activation, trying to think about with your brain a particular muscle, activate it, therefore getting more use, therefore getting more muscle growth. Now the opposite of that, or what they're testing it against, would be external cues. And external cues focus on the desired outcome of the movement. Using the same bench press example, you may say, throw the bar through the ceiling. Now, external cues, you hear a lot more in coaching. You can hear both, but most of the time, if you're listening to a coach and they're actually correcting the movement for you right then and there, they're going to give you some sort of external cue, like throw the bar to the ceiling, or, and we'll go over some of these, but those are typically things that you hear from the coach, and they're trying to find out in this study which one's better, when should you use them, and we have some really great takeaways, and I thought this would be really beneficial for athletes who train alone. Maybe you guys can learn a few cues you're not familiar with, and also uncover some of the science that's behind all of this stuff. So let's get into it. Before we dive any deeper, I kind of want to go over just the examples and the effects of different cues. So I'm going to start with you, man. Do you have any external cues for any specific lifts that you think that you've helped with athletes or maybe even with yourself that you find beneficial?
So one that I can't even take credit for, but that's somebody commented on one of the videos that I uploaded when I was helping with forms and whatnot. And this helps with, because lats are one of those things that people have a really hard time activating.
Yeah.
Actually, like trying to find. So like whether it's pull-ups and the example that it happened was deadlift, trying to pull instead of just pulling your shoulders back, you have to pull them back and down, which that down part is flexing your lats. But the cue that somebody said was act like you're trying to keep somebody from tickling your armpits. And that,
oh, nice. Yeah.
And so that really stuck and I really liked. Another one that a coach used to say for squats is because a lot of people, when they approach the squat, they think of just going down. So when you think of going down, sometimes your knees will bend at just the same time as your hips are going back. But the cue that he told us was act like you're shutting a car door with your butt, like whatever you would do to shut a car door with your butt.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
To send your hips back first and then go through while keeping your chest up. So yeah. So those are two of the ones that I thought of right away.
Yeah, and those are good cues. So I'll give some other examples. Now, just keeping in mind that whole old man strength, when you're thinking of those, there's actually a huge benefit to your mind being able to control your muscles more. So I think that that's important, but it's really like you were talking about, like if I were to just say activate your lats, that's really hard for people to like even understand. Like, what the hell are you talking about? Like, especially if you've never flexed the lats, a day in your life. And so it's really good to learn some of these things and also execute them. So, I'll give some examples, the difference between internal cues and external cues, and then I'll give some other cues that I like. So for the bench press, an internal cue would be squeeze your pecs. An external cue would be drive yourself into the bench. Deadlift, internal cue would be bring your hips to the bar. External cues would be pull up to the ceiling. Squat, internal cue would be chest up, and external cues would be push the floor away. And so really the difference between focusing on the muscle and then focusing on kind of desired end state. Some other ones for, let's see, squat. I really like for people to focus on their feet. So I use this one for actually both the strict press and the squat is grip the floor. So just making sure that you're actually thinking about your feet, spreading your toes, whatever you have to do. And one thing I use a lot on the squat, because I see people's knee tracking different directions and it starts with their feet, is just telling them to spread the floor apart with their feet. If you were to actually think about, like, anyone, if you're not driving right now, just go ahead and try it. Like, put your feet on the ground and try and spread the floor apart underneath you, and you'll realize how much tension you build up in your legs and how stable that makes your knees after you do that. Assuming you're not in socks and your feet just slide across the ground, you're in shoes or on carpet or something like that. And that really helps. Those are some that I really like. Going, still with a squat, I like for people to really think about what their hands are doing on the bar. So bending the bar or breaking the bar, trying to break the bar is a great one. Helps you keep the back tight and helps you keep a lot of tension on the bar. And then one that works great for the deadlift and the squat is show me the logo on your shirt. Because sometimes people get bent over in the squat or they get bent over in the deadlift. And if I'm standing in front of you and I'm like, hey, I really want to see that logo, you're going to force your chest up and come out of the squat with that upright torso. Again, we don't do a lot of low bar back squat here, so you guys could debate that elsewhere. We do a lot more high bar back squat, and then same with the deadlift. And then, there's some other little ones I wrote down. I'm not going to go over the ridiculous ones on strict press. There's head through the keyhole on strict press, which is just once the weight is over your head. Some people have a tendency to keep their head back and like looking up, and it's just placing your head forward after the bar has gone above your head. Just making sure that your spine is stacked, your arms are stacked, your joints are stacked, and everything like that. So a lot of people make that head mistake, pushing your head through. And making it like if you were to be cut in half from the side, your head should also get cut in half when you are holding the bar overhead. A lot of people lean too far in one direction. So those are a lot of great examples of external cues and internal cues that you can use. But going back into kind of the research, so what they actually did, they had 16 males, 4 females, mostly in their late teens and early 20s. And I won't read through the boringness of it, but they really did it on a knee extension machine. And the machine is not the type of machine that you'd see in a Globo gym, where it's just like a knee extension that anybody can do. It's more of it's a controlled amount of pressure that it allows you to press forward. And so that's just something to keep in mind. But in the end, they had them, some of them do internal cues, external cues, and they kind of broke it up, and they, accounted for people being able to do things, tired, not tired, all that jazz. Like I said, I'm not going to read through all the details, but they let's see. For the internal cueing condition, the participants were told to exert maximal effort during the movement while focusing on contracting their quadricep muscles. For the external cueing, the participants were told to exert maximal effort during the movement while focusing on pushing against the pad. And you can kind of see the difference there. If I'm telling you to do something with your leg and and I'm saying, hey, focus on contracting that quadricep, all the muscles in your quadricep, versus, hey, push on that pad as hard as you can. It's just a lot easier to do from a coaching standpoint. Now, kind of what are the big takeaways? Well, it was actually a little bit confusing. Not confusing, but if you just actually look at the data, they found that internal and external cueing led to the same force and power outputs, but external cueing represents the more efficient strategy for performance, as performance was the same with lower muscle activity. So if you just talk about efficiency, they're expending less energy, but with the same performance, and that came from external cues. That is a desirable effect. And it said that the study contributed to the overall body of evidence showing that external cues produce more efficient muscular recruitment strategies, as external cues were capable of leading to the same performance in spite of lower electrical activity in the quads. And then lastly, I said there was another study that they did, and that you kind of have to contrast it here. So everything came out pretty close in this study with like peak torque, external cues slightly one, mean power, internal cues slightly one, then average quad stimulation, internal cues one. But then you have to look at other studies when you're doing this stuff. And then there's another study. It says they found that when participants were cued to focus on cueing their chest when benching, electrical activity in the pecs increased by 22% with 50% one rep max loads. And bear with me, everybody, because I'll get through all these numbers real quick. But and then only 13.3% muscle activation at 80% one rep max loads. And so all of that, I could read all the study and all the results, but really what this other study came out to be was basically the heavier that weight got, the less thinking about your muscle activation actually worked. So once you got up to 80% and more, it kind of went out the window. And if you've ever had 80, 90% of your back squat on your back, I think you know why. You probably can't concentrate a lot on, hey, let me activate my hamstrings and my quads right now. You're just trying to do anything and everything you can to stand up, right? That's all you're trying to do when there's a heavy back squat. It's really hard to focus on these really heavy loads. And so the main takeaway, if you're trying to maximize performance, external cues are the way to go. At best, they increase performance. At worst, they can lead to the same performance with a more efficient muscular recruitment strategy. And so I want to kind of give my main takeaway for the garage gym athlete, and then any insights you may have, Joe. But my main takeaway that I wrote down was use external cues in your garage gym, as it will increase your performance with heavy loads. So use a lot of the external cues that we just mentioned. It's going to help with your performance and make you more efficient. So do that. But that doesn't mean, okay, external cues won, internal cues didn't. I say when using light loads, focus on muscle activation, because there is some probable evidence here, not definite, that it can help with actual muscle growth or hypertrophy. So if you're using a light load, maybe more accessory type movement, or just maybe it's a deload week, or you're going 50%, 60%, really focus on muscle activation as much as you can. And then if it's really heavy, focus on as many external cues as you can. I think both are really helpful in the long run. Any insights, questions, comments, concerns?
No, I was going to say both. Yeah, I think both are very important. And once you get to a certain level, you can kind of seamlessly transition from one to the next, depending on what you're doing. But I think if you wanted to start on something first, do the internal cues, because I think the internal cues will help lay the foundation so that your external cues will be even better.
And I agree with you, because we were just talking about earlier with the lats, the cue you had for the lats, my preference is for an athlete to know when I say activate your lats, them to know that. I don't want to have to, and I will, because I understand how human nature works. I understand that not everyone's in the fitness industry or understands anatomy, physiology, blah, blah, blah. But my preference is for an athlete to know when I say activate your lats, what that means. and how to activate those muscles. I'd rather you, if we're talking about making athletes dangerously effective and more autonomous, the whole purpose of this podcast, I'd prefer you know how to activate your muscles. So like what Joe's saying, start with some internal cues, learn how to use your muscles and activate them at different points in time. But these external cues can definitely help, especially when it gets, things get really, really heavy, or, cause I know like when things do get heavy, I'm not thinking about any sort of muscle activation. I'm really only thinking about, maybe a cue being explosive, things like that. I'm not thinking about muscle activation, but it goes a long way if you can do that stuff. Yeah.
Cause like with the deadlift example, if you're always thinking of the internal cue of squeezing your lats and doing the tickle cue, then when you get to the higher weights, you're thinking, okay, I just need to pick this bar up, but you're still subconsciously keeping your lats squeezed so that you're going to stay tighter and it'll lift more efficiently and not hurt yourself as well.
Yeah, and then I guess if you train alone in your garage gym and you pick up a cue from somebody that's working for you, I guess I would just argue that make sure you understand the why. Because you could end up doing something wrong if you've never had a coach look at your movement or something like that, and Joe saying, or I'm saying, open a pickle jar with your butt, and you're like, what does that even mean? What the hell kind of cue is that? It might not make any sense or actually help you at all unless it's explained and you understand what you're trying to do.
Even after that one's explained, it still doesn't make any sense. But
I thought I'd throw it in there. Just sneak it in. Hopefully no one noticed. But so pickle jar cues, whatever you got, know the why behind them and be a better athlete for it. You good?
Yeah, I think so.
All right. So one thing that's been coming up a lot, just amongst our athletes, things they want to hear more about. We had a lot of topics, a lot of ground to cover, in different areas that we have been requested in our Facebook group and everything. But one thing that comes up on a more recurring basis is, hey, that whole Into 3 Fitness method, your programming, that you're so proud of, like maybe talk about that a little bit, how it works. And it's actually, we can't do it on one podcast. Impossible. We have an entire coaching certification that hundreds of coaches have gone through now, and it takes them several weeks months to go through the information and then further to implement it and pass the practical and everything. So no, we can't explain it all in one podcast, but we can start. We can start with some of the foundation modules and methods and kind of explain this more a little bit so everyone has a greater understanding about how we program a lot differently, or maybe just put more thought into it than a lot of other people. We're not looking into, I've seen some other people like on YouTube and they're like throwing together a workout. They're like, they're programming. I'm using air quotes, and they're just like, they just pulled some shit out of their ass. Like, not literally, but that's what they do, and that's not what we do. So today I'm going to talk about, we have a YouTube video. You could search it if you want to watch me talk about this a little bit more. It's how to go from couch to hard to kill. And it's kind of our programming method, one of our more general concepts. And I want to go over that real quick. Joe, you make sure that I'm explaining it well. And if you want to chime in at any point, I'll stop at each kind of bracket. But we have this stair-step system where we say the first thing that you need to do is have good habits in place and be consistent, because our method really doesn't matter for someone who's inconsistent or has poor habits. So really work on those habits and consistency. This is where I'm in agreement, where I don't care what you do as long as you're doing something. Some people have that idea forever, and it really should end after you are consistent, because you won't continue to see results. So get the habits, get the consistency, whether that's I train at the same time every day, or you confidently, hey, I train 5 days per week, haven't missed in a long time, so on and so forth. Make sure you guys get that stuff dialed in before you start hopping into our methods. Now, the first step after that is how we think that you should build a healthy human being. I have to define healthy. Healthy to us is simply healthy. You are a functional human who's capable of doing just slightly more than someone who doesn't train or do anything. You can't do a lot of cool shit, but you are healthy, and you're doing the exercises needed to maintain that health and keep going for years to come. And we think that you only need to train 2 different areas. And the first one is the sub-maximal effort method. So think of strength training, and sub-maximal effort can be more hypertrophy bodybuilding style work. Anything that is not maximum lifting for reps or for load or anything like that. So just lifting weights, practicing muscle contractions in any way, shape, or form. That's the first thing. The second thing is oxidative conditioning. Now, this gets into energy pathways a little bit, but oxidative is just aerobic style conditioning. So that is really what human beings are most well designed for, is long duration walking or jogging. We can do that for very long periods of time without having to stop. The way our fueling system works in our body, we can run out of carbohydrates and still continue to do that and burn purely fat. Fat is the preferred energy source in that. So those are the two main areas that we believe that you should be healthy. And we're not going to really talk about necessarily how to program them, but we'll talk a little bit more about our programming and the different areas that we do hit. So any questions on healthy or habits and consistency, Joe?
Nope, no questions. That was pretty easy.
All right, cool. Next is kind of our middle tier, and we call this fit. Now you're going from healthy to fit. So you're going to have that submaximal effort method, and you're also going to have oxidative conditioning in your programming. So we're talking about probably more on a week or at least a monthly basis. So you have those two things in there at all times throughout your life. And now we add two more. And the next one is the max effort method. And I'll just stop there. So in the max effort method, some people think going for a 1 rep max, that's all they think about. That is not what we're necessarily talking about. We do test 1 rep max just because it's so easy for us to be able to do that. Like it's just such a concrete pattern, but it can be any sort of maximum effort bout, because what happens when you go maximal is you recruit your central nervous system, and that elicits a lot of hormones and other things. So max effort is very important. You can do this in lifting through 3 rep maxes, 10 rep maxes, 90 second for more of a power endurance type test, like max kettlebell swings in 90 seconds. We have the max snatch, kettlebell snatch test, things like that. A lot of different things you get to utilize the max effort method that aren't necessarily what everyone thinks when we talk about 1 rep max. So that would be the next thing. And then also that we have phosphagen conditioning, which is just that lower end 10 to 12 second. You get a lot of that type of conditioning just from doing strength training. You don't necessarily have to break it out all the time, but you can. So like if you wanted to hop on a rower and do 10, 15 second sprints, actual 10 to 15 second sprints running, or the devil's tricycle, Airdyne, doing 10 to 15 second bouts, those are actually more painful than you will realize. And so that is phosphagen conditioning. Any questions on that one?
No questions. I just wanted to point out that probably the majority of people training on their own, and that I did for years, I'm sure you did as well, is that this is generally where the bodybuilder type gym bros are at the fit, because they're only doing about three of these things. They probably don't even get into the phosphagen. It's just submax, max, and your oxidative to do some cardio on the treadmill, which isn't a bad thing, but that's just in relation to where some people might be at.
Yeah, once you kind of look at all these, kind of audit your current programming to see, if it's not ours, kind of. And I will say, you don't have to train all of these things all the time. This is more of our hard to kill approach. So our hard to kill track will hit all of these areas over the course of 30 days. Some of the other tracks we will greatly minimize. Like our strength track, you're not going to see a ton of oxidative conditioning because that's aerobic endurance. We will do that sometimes, but we don't need it too much. So it's not to say, hey, you have to have all these things to have a good program, period. It really depends on your goals, but you should be thinking about all of these things and what you really want to be able to do. And it's my belief that if you do incorporate all of these things, you're going to be really well rounded and truly prepared for anything, as opposed to a bodybuilder who can, hop on a treadmill. They're really not prepared for much when we're talking about life, like anything life could throw at you. They're really prepared to be in the gym, and that's about it. All right, now moving to the last one is our hard to kill. That's kind of the last step. So we talked about sub-maximal effort method. We talked about maximal effort method. And the last is the dynamic effort method. This is missing in almost every strength program out there. Dynamic effort method in strength training is moving a load quickly. Let's not complicate it any more than that. focusing on moving a load quickly. It can be lighter loads, it could be moderate loads, but moving that load as fast as you can. And here's the reason we put it in the last bit there, because if you are brand new, you don't have any habits and consistency, you haven't spent any time in the healthy or fit categories, and I give you a barbell and say, move that as fast as you can, you probably end up hurt or injured, right? So you need to make sure that you have your form down and you've put in the reps before you worry about the dynamic effort method. But it also doesn't have to be power cleans and snatches. That's also, some people get confused and ask me about that. You can move a deadlift just faster than normal, and that's the dynamic effort method. You can move a bench press faster than normal. That's dynamic effort method. You can do that with a squat. There are a lot of different ways to do this. And also, Louis Simmons pioneered a lot of this stuff from Westside Barbell. You don't have to use accommodating resistance with bands and chains. That's probably like the next level of the dynamic effort method. But if you just start moving quicker, you're going to start seeing a lot more results than normal. And let's see, we talked about oxidative conditioning. We talked about phosphagen. Then the last one is glycolytic. Glycolytic conditioning, to be honest, does not need to be in most programs. And this is where CrossFit goes heavy on it, because they want to elicit that puke response a lot of times, or people who do it. Glycolytic conditioning is about a 90-second to 2-minute bout of near max effort, not true max effort because you wouldn't be able to sustain it, but probably 85-90%. Just think about going all out on an airdyne for 2 minutes. How would you feel after that, Joe?
Not good.
Yeah, not good. So glycolytic is that really, really shitty stuff. It can be in the form of CrossFit Metcons. It can be in the form of, really shitty intervals at high intensities. This is not something that you should be doing every other day. So we had conversations all the way back on podcast 1 about cortisol. Like, there are pros and cons of going this high intensity, right? And this is where I also like to point out, of all the different just methods, we haven't even got into how we actually program it, but all the methods I just mentioned, a lot of subpar CrossFit conditioning is only that one, glycolytic conditioning.
I was going to think about that.
And so that's all they're doing. They're not really worried about that lower end. They're not too worried about aerobic. They're catching on more to that because of Chris Hinshaw. They're not doing any of the 3 strength training methods out there. Like, you're missing a lot if all you're doing is a really intense Metcon over and over again. You're missing out, and you have a lot of holes in your game. And so that's kind of our method, one of our very basic concepts, to be honest, because all of those break out and spider out. And like I said, we'll cover them more, but our hard to kill track covers every single one of those. We actually break it out if we were to spider it out, because strength training can be, those methods could be broken out into further categories. So can the conditioning. And so all said and done, we have about 13 different areas that we train. And those 13 areas that we train are hit over the course of the hard to kill track. And then anyone who's interested in our specific programming, hard to kill is the leader of all of the programming. And Joe knows this as well. I write hard to kill first in its entirety, and then all the other tracks get their portions, because every single track is going to have some sliver from hard to kill. And the main reason is because we're just pulling from 13 different areas of training. And so I'll be like, okay, hard to kill is done. Which part of hard to kill can or will go to strength? Which part can or will go to endure? So on and so forth, breaking them all down. And so it's kind of like the lead engine on the train, right? That pulls all of our other tracks. And then the other tracks are just get a little bit more goal specific. So we'll drop things like I mentioned in strength, we're like, okay, less aerobic, more phosphagen conditioning here in strength training, because that's going to help you with your gains. Endure track, more oxidative conditioning, a lot more, but we still want some strength training, so on and so forth. So that's kind of how we break it down. And we can talk about, maybe the next time we do one of these methods, the full 13 areas that we train, and talk about each one of those a little bit more. But that's kind of the hard to kill method approach right there.
Get it all.
Did I explain it well enough?
I think so, yeah.
Awesome.
Whenever you're trying to, and this is just the one for people that come to us and say that they want it all, and they want to be stronger, more conditioned, even looking good naked or whatever. This is like the upper echelon, filling up the pie of every single section. But from there, depending on what your goals are, you can kick something else out to get more strength or more conditioning, something like that. That's kind of how we do things. Yeah,
some people like the idea of the really well-rounded approach to our hard to kill method and our hard to kill track, but then they really only care about PRing a couple of lifts. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
the appeal of the well-rounded sounds good to their brain, but they truly desire PRs on the barbell. And there's nothing wrong with that. We have another track for that, so I don't fault anybody. I just think getting really dialed into what you want and how that works for you. Like I just said, I don't think that glycolytic programming is needed. Like it's not actually needed for human beings. You could very well survive on everything else without ever having to go there. But if you are conditioned there, and if you are conditioned glycolytic in all those other areas, there's basically nothing that can be thrown at you that should scare you from a physical, like, workout stamina standpoint. Like I was just in Utah like a few weeks ago, and the guy, we did MURPH, we did a half MURPH or whatever at his house, and he's like, he wanted me to hop on the Airdyne and do 60 seconds max calories. And I was like, that is not intimidating at all for me. I know exactly what kind of pace I would hold and how I would not throw up because I'm conditioned for this kind of stuff. Like, let's do it. But he gets a lot of people over to his house who have no idea what they're getting into, and they throw up everywhere after they do 60 seconds max calories. So, and I realized this when I first showed up to Special Tactics and Air Force Special Operations Command. The first day, they were like, new guy, we got PT tomorrow. You're going to die. Like they want to kill you. And I was actually nervous for a while. I remember I was nervous. I was like, shit, like tomorrow's going to be kind of crazy. And then it wasn't until like we started working out that I was like, what on earth could they do? There's nothing that these guys could do that's going to like make me throw up or be any worse than what I do in my own training. And yeah, we did that training session. Everything was fine. And I love that level of preparedness, especially when it comes to the Spartan race, life, emergencies, anything, like just being ready at all times is very appealing to me.
Yeah. And I kind of wanted to just briefly hit on how to work up to getting there. Because you just went over what, so I just wanted to touch on the how. So before you start, because of Hard to Kill, we do all the work everything. But before you start doing, in my opinion, dynamic efforts lifting heavy weights fast, you got to start lifting heavy weights first. Be comfortable with lifting the heavy weights. But before you start lifting heavy weights, you got to do actually lifting weights. So that's why we kind of have this on the spectrum to where it's good to, if you are still kind of very new, you need to start with the submax before you get to the max, before you get to dynamic, because if you can't control the weight that you're moving fast, then you're just either going to hurt yourself or not going to get the proper stimulus out of it.
Oh, which reminds me, you almost glad you brought that up. So phosphagen conditioning, the 10 to 15 seconds, and also glycolytic, 90 seconds to 2 minutes. You have to be strong to be able to do those things. People miss that a lot of times. If I take someone who's never trained before and I bring you to do glycolytic training on the Airdyne, you might not, and I'm not saying you have to be overwhelmingly strong. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you have no real strength base, you can't even benefit from the training because you don't have enough strength to do so. It takes a certain level of muscular strength and power. I'm sure you know, Joe, let's talk about 500-meter row. To go max 500-meter row is a shit ton of power, but it also really sucks, right? It's about a 90 seconds. It's almost like a pure glycolytic thing. And to be able to do that, if you're just weak, you're not, that test does not suck for a weak person. Like a 500-meter row for time does not suck for a weak person because you're just not strong enough to do it. You're not strong enough to make that suck. So you have to have a certain base level of strength. And like I said, I'm not saying this if you're not deadlifting 3 times your body weight, you don't understand. No, you just have to have some base level of strength to be able to start to benefit from these things. That's also another reason we work you up the way that we talked about.
Yeah. So the note that I just put for that was execution over variety. So don't just throw stuff in just to throw it in if you can't execute it properly. So work on executing it first and then add in the pieces as you go. And
don't do, if you're programming this on your own, don't do all of those things every day. That's probably the biggest misconception right there. It is not, I'm going to hit every single one of these methods every day and be amazing. This is spread out over a month, a week if you're really pushing it. And that's how you hit all these different areas of training. All right, let's move on to the workout of the week, man. Meet Yourself Saturday. We're doing Dia De Los Muertos. I'll brief it real quick. Not a ton of strategy. Have you done death buys? I'm sure.
Yes.
Yeah. Have you done this one specifically? It's probably been a while. I don't think we programmed it for a while.
I don't think so, just because I've never really had a place to do the shuttles.
Yeah.
Good place to do them.
So the workout is death by 10 meter, 5 minutes rest, death by push-up. Do you feel comfortable describing what death by workouts are?
Yeah, basically it's almost like an EMOM, but every single time you add a rep. So first minute you do 1 rep, second minute you do 2 reps, so on and so forth, and you rest for the remainder of the time. So the first 3 or 4 rounds, you're going to be like, oh, okay, this is super easy because it's 1 or 2 things. But then after a while, you're going to hit a point where it's like, holy crap, how am I going to add 1 more next time?
Exactly. And with the 10 meters, it's 10 the first round, 20, 30, 40, 50, until you can no longer fit it in a minute. And then same with the push-ups, 1 push-up, 2 push-up, 3 push-up, each corresponding minute until you can no longer fit the amount of push-ups in that given minute. You do get the rest. Death by 10 meters is probably the most deceptive run workout I ever do or have ever done, because you'll get up into, if you're fairly quick, you'll get up into the upper like teens of that workout, and you'll be able to finish with just like a few seconds left, like 5 seconds left, and then the next, like you'll just be able to do that for a while, and it can get really bad really fast. But this one is not one of those where it's going to suck no matter what. Like some of these, like just doing MURPH kind of is going to suck no matter what if you finish it. This is not like that. Like you need to push yourself on death by 10 meters at least if you want to get the most benefit out of your workout, because you can half-ass it and it's not going to be that bad. You'd be like, oh yeah, capped out at 10 rounds on death by 10 meter. Like if you're really pushing, sprinting every 10 meter bout, you're going to make it pretty far and it's going to suck pretty bad towards the beginning, and not giving up, not being like, just calling it when it's like, there's no way I could do 1 more, or I could do 19 or whatever the number is. Never get to that point to where you're just like, not going to try. Even if you know for sure you're going to get time capped on that next one, give it every single bit of effort you have going through that last round. And then push-ups are just push-ups. You can't really cheat it or do anything. Like it's do 1, do 2. If you make it to 20, super proud of you. It's awesome. That's we used to do this when I was in the military. At the end of the workday, I would just bring everyone outside, and we would do death by push-ups, not the run necessarily. Damn near every day. People knew, and it was only gonna take us like 12 minutes for some people, 15 for some others, 20. It's a great workout to actually see benefits from. Doing the death by push-ups, a really solid workout. Do you have any tips, tricks, strategies at all?
Yeah, I think so. For the meters, I think you can kind of, I don't want to say dog the first couple rounds, but I think you can pace yourself really well in the first couple rounds. So instead of burning yourself out in the beginning, just kind of do your jog the first couple or whatever. But as you start to fit more into it, up your speed instead of just going as fast as you can and then having a ton of time to rest, because you still have that whole minute. But you'll rest a lot faster if you're not going full effort at first. But then toward the end, you'll have a little bit more left in the tank to go further in those higher rounds. And as far as push-ups go, don't be afraid to break them up. So like if you get to the 8th and you're starting to shake a little bit, do 4, stop, and do 4 as long as you can fit them into a minute. That little bit of like 5 seconds of rest could make a big difference in the later rounds. That's
a huge tip right there. And write that one down, everybody. That one goes a long way, because you can probably knock out, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Like those are just easy rep numbers for you. But the earlier you start breaking that up, the better. Don't get too crazy with it, because you'll probably just end up running out of time. But if you do start breaking those up early, that'll go a long way. All right, man. That's all we got this week. Other than the question I'll ask you every week, man, why should people sign up for 14-day free trial if they're not already? And then I'll give an update to all current athletes on just some more stuff that we have going on.
Well, because as I mentioned earlier, is that piggybacking off of my MURPH experience, the fact that after a year later of training, recovering and milestones at MURPH add up a lot, basically. So, and what we've seen in the community is that a ton of people have done their MURPH for the first time, or are recovering faster from their MURPH, or have done the first vested MURPH ever, and just hitting those milestones, whether it's even if it's not a PR time, you're if you're adding more to your regiment and being able to bounce back and keep training versus in the past you might have been crippled by a workout like this, then I think it's the way to go.
Yeah, I think that's great. I mean, I think the community by itself, seeing everyone's posts, like, is huge. And just like backing up from like a business standpoint, like we sold one-off programs for a long time, kind of with no community. Like you try to foster community, but like when someone just buys something once, it's harder to foster that community. And for us, it kind of feels like crickets, right? It's like hard to like get people engaged and communicate. But Garage Gym Athletes has been so different from that, as opposed to just something you bought once and did once, because we're always bringing new programming and new challenges and stuff like that. I think the community is just awesome. It's been really fun to be a part of. And I don't think I could continue doing this business online if we didn't have some sort of awesome community like we have, because it would just be like my job as well as your job is really a desk job at a computer, 90% of the time or whatever. We probably have a little bit more time to exercise than most people, depending on the day. But other than that, the community keeps me going. Now, see, when people are listening to this, Joe, will be in, 2 weeks left? 3 weeks left? 3 weeks left in this cycle?
It'll be 2. We'll be starting, when they start listening to it, it will be the second week of the cycle. So then after that, so I don't know if you count that.
Yeah, so they have...
The next Monday starts week 2 of this month.
Yeah, so week 2. So then we have one more week of training, then deload, and then fit week. So fit week is coming for all of our athletes. And I mentioned last time we are going to have some optional training sessions. If you don't want to do any max effort stuff, or you want to skip that, or you don't feel like you're ready for it, that's fine. You could do some of our other tests, test what you want, and throw anything else out. We do a lot of cool stuff with free shirts and everything, but probably the most exciting time for us, and also really busy time. But we would love everyone to be a part of Fit Week, and everyone who has it coming up. I always tell our athletes to treat it like the Super Bowl. This is our test. This is something that we're training for. We're testing all these different energy pathways and strength systems, like strength methods that we're doing, and we're testing them all and really seeing how well-rounded you are and seeing how ready you are to take on life. So it's coming. Get ready for it. Start dialing everything in now. I know we're several weeks out, but I really think things like hydration and nutrition take longer to help you out. So start dialing that stuff in, getting ready for it. Cut out the alcohol, make sure the sleep's on point, all that stuff. But other than that, thanks for listening, and don't forget your chance to go get that barbell. Thanks for listening to the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. If you want to learn more, go to garagegymathlete.com. You can learn about our training. Let us send you a copy of our book, The Garage Gym Athlete, or you can even get featured on the Garage Gym Athlete podcast. Thanks for listening.